Hello and welcome to SiComponents YouTube channel. My name is Gleb and today we will discuss how to choose the right IDE for you. We will discuss the factors that need to be considered, evaluate the most important IDE of choice, and in the end arrive at a few suggestions so you can make the best choice for your unique and personal situation. Let's dive in. Before we start talking about the topic of today's video, let's first highlight who this video is relevant for. Think for a second about these questions on your screen. Are you looking to pick your first ever IDE? Are you searching for the right IDE to complete your project? Are you simply interested in evaluation of other IDEs out there to consider some options? If any of these questions can be applied to your situation, then great, as the goal of this video is to find out the best IDE based on your needs and wants. The most important step is to analyze which factors need to be considered when making a choice. The number one factor is the cost. Even though some IDEs are either free or have a free version, it is still crucial to keep your individual budget in mind, as there is a great pricing range for all sorts of IDEs. Secondly, one of the features that is not so apparent, yet extremely important, is debugging. Nearly every IDE is different in its debugging tools and syntax. Therefore, before making commitment to a certain IDE, verify that its debugging methods are in line with your workflow. Next comes the GUI, the user interface of the IDE. This might seem as an irrelevant factor, however, IDEs, even oriented at the same programming language, have different GUI which affects the workflow of your development. The themes of the IDE also fall under this factor. For example, some developers can provide much better output in darker themed environments, while others stick to more wide, bright alternatives. Another factor similar to the previous one is the non-essential add-ons. These include syntax highlighting, auto-completion of the code, etc. If you had any prior experience with development, you must probably have already developed your own taste for these add-ons. For example, you might require syntax highlighting, or alternatively, the ability to either turn it off completely or customize it entirely. Lastly, you need to look at the extensibility of the IDE. Here you should consider what languages does the IDE support for the interface as well for the programming languages, and how many and how useful are the plugins available out there for this particular IDE. Now let's go through some of the most popular choices and briefly evaluate each one. Note, we will not be going deeply into definitions of each IDE, but rather evaluate its strengths and weaknesses. First and foremost, one of the top dogs of the industry, Visual Studio by Microsoft, which supports nearly all programming languages. A nice bonus right away is the availability of the Community Edition, which is free and has the same functionality as the commercial version. Another strength that is outlined by the majority of developers using it is the easy to evaluate and fluent debugging tools that make the process of debugging the code very straightforward and simple. Lastly, it is very well structured and easy to use, as the interface is completely in line with up-to-date industry standards, and even if you're a complete beginner, you'll not have to struggle while navigate within the IDE. Now, to highlight some of the weaknesses of Visual Studio. It is a rather large-sized IDE that takes up more of memory space than some of the alternatives. And there is no debugging for Angular and AngularJS yet, as of the day of this recording. And lastly, when installing the IDE, there is very little customization of what packages and support to install, which might be a problem. Before carrying out a certain verdict, let's evaluate other choices first. Next up on the list is a lesser known when compared to Visual Studio, unless you're a client of SiComponents of course, however, just as powerful if not more, Rad Studio by Embarcadero. Out of the strengths is the ability to develop and compile for a variety of target platforms, and, just like the Visual Studio, there is a community edition available out there that can be used for free for a year. Most importantly, it is one of the best IDEs to work with GUIs, as it is possible to develop advanced applications with very little code and setting up the majority of functions of the app in design time. Moreover, there are plenty of components available out there, just like TC-Lang, that can bring your applications to a next level of functionality and potential. Some of the weaknesses are the fact that it is not currently available for macOS, so in that case you would have to install a virtual machine. However, you can develop applications for a target platform of macOS no problem. The licensed version can also be seen expensive for some of the sole beginner developers when compared to alternatives. And lastly, there is limited support for programming languages, as you would have to code either in Object Pascal or C++. However, there are components available out there to integrate with other languages, but it gets tricky and messy. Let's now take a look at another IDE called Eclipse by Eclipse Foundation. It is an open source IDE and it's great in terms of extensibility. Most of the feedback provided regarding this IDE points out that it is very simple and beginner friendly. And lastly, it has comprehensive debugging tools which makes the whole process a lot smoother. For the weaknesses, it is worth mentioning that it does not support other programming languages as well as supports Java, as it is a primarily Java-oriented IDE. Moreover, it takes up a lot of RAM when compared to other IDEs, so it is something to consider if the power of your development device is limited. And it does not have theme customization, which relates to one of the factors we mentioned in the beginning of this video. Lastly, let's take a look at the idea that is probably most familiar for new beginners, PyCharm by JetBrains. First off, it is a very simple and intuitive IDE where you can get to writing and running your code in no time. It is also easy to use and to integrate without libraries, which is self-explanatory considering it's a primarily Python-oriented IDE. However, it supports other programming languages as well. It provides you with the opportunity to develop a wide range of Python applications, ranging from some back-end database algorithms up to front-end web applications. On the weakness list for this IDE, there is the fact that some of the features of the paid version of PyCharm are now available for free in the community version of the Visual Studio. Additionally, the paid version is expensive when compared to alternatives. And lastly, the Communities Edition functionality is limited compared to the paid one, which is not the case for other IDEs we discussed in this video. Let's now make more general suggestions regarding each of the IDEs evaluated. Let's revisit each of the IDEs discussed and make some generic ideal match developer profile for each IDE, as then you can pick which profile is most similar to you. For Visual Studio, we would say it is ideal for developers of any level of experience, as well as a team of developers, as it has some features that enable collaboration on projects, and the availability of Community Edition does not bring the matter of a budget into the equation. For Ad Studio, it is best for intermediate to advanced developers or user interface designers, with the goal to create advanced, GUI-heavy applications for a variety of target platforms. It will be the ideal version for representatives of a firm, which makes a budget factor minor. Eclipse would be the best go-to option for Java developers looking for a cheaper alternative to IntelliJ. It would help if the developer's experience was intermediate or higher. Lastly, PyCharm is the best for any level of Python developers. It can be seen as the ultimate sandbox to play around and experiment in. Or, if the budget factor is no issue, it can also be the best tool to work on the back end of your applications. Thank you for checking out this video, we hope you found it helpful. If you have any questions, let us know in the comments, and make sure to subscribe to the channel to not miss out on any of the informational videos and nice promo bonuses for SiComponents.